thank you very much for joining me on Teacher Parent Person. So, Niki, you're currently working in Switzerland.
Yeah. Hi, Francis. Yes, I'm currently working in Switzerland in a school in the Jura, which is one of the more rural, least known cantons of Switzerland. And I've only been here since February, and I'm leaving and going back to Barcelona on Sunday in less than a week. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for volunteering to be part of this project. Could you please describe your experience thus far as a teacher parent?
Okay, so I've been a parent for 20 years. My eldest child is a daughter. My daughter's 20. She's at university in London, second year, just finished her second year. So 20 years of being a parent, and not all of that have I been a teacher. So I became a teacher 3 or 4 years before having my daughter. I have a son of 16 as well. And I've had so many different experiences. So initially when I was pregnant, I was doing a maternity leave in a primary school in Dorset. And because it was a maternity leave, there was an end to the contract. So consequently, because I was pregnant, my contract wasn't renewed, but I was offered a part-time literacy role in year 3, because at that time literacy was, we found that children weren't learning to read, and so I had a part-time literacy role. So when I came back from having my daughter after my own maternity leave, I took up this part-time position. And I found it really, really hard to leave her and to go and look after other people's children. So I was leaving my baby with somebody else and then going into school to look after other people's babies. And there was just this juxtaposition of, what are you doing? You're a mother, you're basically abandoning your baby to go and earn money for financial reasons to provide for this baby by looking after other people's children. And I couldn't get my head around this. It took me ages to get, in fact, I don't think I ever got my head around it at all. And financially being part-time wasn't great for us. So I then started working for a drama academy on evenings as well. So I had childcare to find on a morning. So I'd rush into, drop her off, rush into school, do my job, rush home to pick her up, have the afternoon with her, and then go and drop her off for childcare again in the evening until my husband could come home from work and pick her up and bring her home. And I just thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. We're all running around and none of us are getting any pleasure from being a family because we're spending our whole time running around, dropping kids here and there and everywhere and not spending time together. So that was my experience when she was little. We then moved to France and we decided, actually, it was a conscious decision to try and spend more time with her because I said, what's the point in having children if you don't see them? So we sold our property in the south of England. We bought a completely dilapidated farmhouse in the middle of rural France with a roof hanging off and no windows, no electricity. And we decided we would do the escape to the country, renovate a French farmhouse project dream thing that people have. And we did it, for 7 years. So she then went to a French school from around the age of 3 because French schools will accept children as soon as they're nappy trained. And my son was born over there. So I stopped teaching, in actual fact, when we were renovating the farmhouse and we were living this very beautiful, simple lifestyle of growing our own vegetables and renovating the property and learning to speak French and joining in with French life, French culture. And she went to the local village school. So it was literally 2 classes. So my experience of an English primary school of 300 children, and she went first of all to a school of 20 children, which was 2 classes. And of course, she learned French. There was no English in the school. And I remember the teacher telling me when she was about 4, saying, you know, the first couple of weeks that Eliza was in school, she hit me. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, my 3-year-old hit her teacher. You know, that's really awful. And then she said, you know, it's okay. She was a young teacher. She was lovely. She said, it's okay. It was because she didn't understand me. I was speaking French to her and she didn't understand me. And so the only way she could really interact with me was either smiling at me or hitting me. And I knew there was something wrong when she hit me. So she was communicating with me until she could speak French. So in those first years in France, I wasn't teaching. I was a holistic therapist. I was working with different skills and talents that I have. And I was working as a reflexologist in a private health clinic. And so my son was born, he went to the local primary school. And there came a point where I realized that actually I was doing my children a disservice in that they were learning French. We were speaking English at home, but I wasn't providing them with a bilingual education. And that actually, if I went back to teaching, I could do that because they could go to my school. So I then went back. I was really fortunate to find a job in the nearest international school, which was in an hour away in Clermont-Ferrand, a city, and it was run by Michelin, the car tire manufacturers. So I got a part-time job in their school, and both my children were able to go to the school. So my son went into the little nursery class, and that was beautiful because he got to sleep on an afternoon, which was great for him, but a pain for me because he wasn't tired when he came home. And my daughter went into a bilingual class, and they were surprised that Mum was a teacher because they hadn't realised in the years that we were living in France, the few years before that I was a teacher. And it was a total surprise for them when I said, you know, Mum's going back to teaching and you're coming to Mum's school. It was, really? You used to be a teacher? Oh, okay. And so that was a different kind of juggling when they're that little bit older, because it was an hour away from home. So I rented a flat in the city, and we went to school on a Sunday night. And then on a Tuesday night, we came home because there was no school on Wednesday in France. So we had Wednesdays off, which was amazing. So we got 2 days in school. I got to see them around the school as well. So it was lovely having them in the same building as me. There wasn't this resentment that there had been when Eliza was a baby of, I'm working with other people's children and where's mine? Mine were in the same school. They were with colleagues. I knew where they were. And we had Wednesdays off and we had weekends off, and we went back to the country and went horse riding, and it felt more of a balance than it did in the UK. You know, that was really tough when she was little. But in France, it felt much more of a balance. So it was a more positive experience for all of us. There were some downers in that my daughter both my kids are dyslexic. My daughter has ADD, which wasn't diagnosed till she was 17, actually. So she went all through her schooling thinking that she was not clever, and that she took her a lot longer to do things than other people. And one of my colleagues, the French colleague who taught her on mornings, who we shared a classroom. When I was in the classroom, she was in a different classroom, and we swapped because the children did French on a morning or French on an afternoon and English on a morning or afternoon, vice versa. So we swapped classes all the time. And one day I was in the classroom and heard my colleagues shouting. French teachers shout a lot. British teachers, they use that as a way of controlling children a lot. And I heard her shouting, and I thought, oh my goodness, who's the poor child she's shouting at? And in listening, I realized it was my daughter that she was shouting at because she hadn't finished her work or she hadn't spelt something correctly, and this was her way of dealing with it. And I think the difficulty is when you're a teacher in the school where your children are, is that you don't feel that you can put your parent hat on. Because I knew I had to go and see my colleague and say, hey, you know, I heard you speaking to my daughter in that way, and as her mother, that doesn't work for me. And then she wouldn't accept it, so we had to go and see the principal and have a meeting with the principal. And it was really tough to wear my parent hat in the school that I was working in, so I could see both sides. You know, having my children there, we all felt safer because we're in the same school. But on the other side of it, I felt I didn't have a voice as a parent because I was a teacher in school.
Yeah.
And that's happened all the way through. So, you know, my daughter graduated 2 years ago, and she had a difficult relationship with her art teacher, who was a colleague of mine. And again, that was, you know, it's really delicate to walk the line of, he's my colleague, but he's also not encouraging my daughter's artistic talents, and she needs someone who can encourage her. And how do I deal with that as a parent who's also his colleague? So yeah, I mean, that's been my experience as a teacher. There have been times when it's been really positive, and there've been times when I would have just liked not to have been a teacher.
So what would you have said were the best bits then? What would you have said is you said positive parts, which
I think probably it was my experience in France of having the balance, having 3 days off a week instead of just weekends, having longer holidays, because holidays in France are July and August, 2 months, and to spend really good quality family time where none of us were going into school was just amazing. And I would definitely say, you know, the best bits are finding the balance and having the quality time off, as well as, you know, knowing that I have a job and I have financial security doing a job that I like doing. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. What did you find most challenging?
I think the most challenging bit was the juggling, the constant juggling, the constant working out what was the best thing to do and not knowing what was the best thing to do, because we hadn't stayed in the UK. From France, we moved to Switzerland. From Switzerland, I moved as a single mum to Barcelona in Spain with my 2 children as a teacher. It was constantly working out, you know, what's the best thing for them and how can I make that happen. So because I wanted a bilingual education, the first decision was I need to go back to teaching. I need a job in teaching so that I can give them a bilingual education. And then it was, how do I juggle all of this? I've got one in this year group. I've got one in this year group. And how do I go to parent teachers meetings when I'm running my own parent teachers meetings? And how do I support them doing their homework on a night when I've got all my marking to do? When am I going to do my marking and play with them? How am I going to juggle all of this? And, you know, I need to take them to the dentist after school, but I've got a staff meeting. How can I do this? There's only one of me, and most of my time I was a single mum, so I didn't have a partner to take some of that load as well. And I think the challenges was the constant juggle and the constant changing hats. I'm a parent. Oh, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. Oh, no. I need to support her doing her homework now because she doesn't understand it. I'm a parent. But when am I going to finish that marking? My kids need it for tomorrow. How am I going to do it?
Yeah, that sounds like a lot to carry. So what would you do differently if you were to do it all again?
I think, in all honesty, I would have moved out of full-time teaching, possibly stayed part-time in a job that I felt valued in, or moved into opening my own tutoring business.
Yeah.
Where I could be more flexible with the hours I worked. I would have looked for more flexibility rather than trying to fit into the box, the rigidity of our current school system, where we need to be in school from 8 till 4:30 or 8 till 5, and our family fits around it. I think I would have definitely put my children at the centre and then built something around that worked for us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Were there any surprises along the way, things that came up that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the positives were that when I met my children in school, when we were in the same school, when I met them, they would give me a hug, and that was so lovely that we still were able to have that contact, that mum-children contact within the working environment, and that they were just so happy to run into me in the corridors, or, you know, if I came in as a supply teacher in their classroom, a cover lesson, that it was mum. And it was sometimes, oh, you know, oh, hi, mum. And then it was, oh, my friends saw me saying mum in the corridor. And the friends would, you know, the friends would be cool with it. You know, even up to 16, my son was still coming up to me in the corridor and hugging me and saying, how you, or high five now, just high five. How you doing, mum? Yeah, have a good day. But I think on the negative side, it was to see also how many of my colleagues could be unkind to colleagues' children. That really surprised me that could happen. I remember my daughter being in an exam situation, and, you know, the whole school hall filled with single tables, you know, the end of year exams, and she was sent to one of the. I was in the exam hall myself as a surveillante. That's French. You know, covering the exam. Invigilator, that's the word. And she was sent to the far corner where I knew she couldn't see the time, and I knew because she had extra time, she needed to see a clock. She needed to know how much extra time she had. And so I said to my colleague who was running the exam, "Oh, Eliza's at the back. You know, she has extra time. Would it be possible that she moves?" And my colleague turning around and saying, "Mind your own business. I'm running this exam. You need to leave now, and I need to do my job." And she just, you know, she just refused to have, you know, any comment from me at that point. Which, you know, I did it for my daughter, so it was that, okay, I was out of, you know, probably out of order in that I was protecting my daughter's needs. But I think if I hadn't done that, she, you know, I wouldn't have been doing my best job as a mother. Thank you
very much. So that's quite a tricky one, and I think different schools will handle that as well in different circumstances. So finally, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to any teacher parents out there watching this?
Yeah, this is definitely something that's taken me a long time to learn, and I wish I'd learned it sooner, and that is look after yourself. Self-care is so important. And I think often when we are juggling and we have a great long list of things to do, we put ourselves and our needs at the bottom of that list, and we say, oh, I'll get round to that later. Oh, I'll take some time for me later, or, you know, I can't do that today. And what happens is that we literally run out of fuel. We run out of fuel to help anybody else, and we can't do our jobs either as teachers or as parents if we're not looking after ourselves well, and we get to burnout, or we get to depression, anxiety, mental health issues, physical issues, or we're just not being mindful because so many things are going on in our heads at the same time. So priority number one is you. Take care of you so that you can take care of everything else. That would be my top tip.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're so
and thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.